Let's start by me telling you, you're going to hear 2 days of lots of companies, and I want you to take away 2 things from me on Bluerock. One is a collective amazement of what our industry is doing to change what's possible for patients. And the second is that Bluerock has a very versatile and flexible partnering method that we've demonstrated over the past several years, and we're continuing to demonstrate, and we'll look to partner in the future to bring products forward for our patient population. And so with those 2 things in mind, let's also agree that for the last 100 years or so, as a pharmaceutical medicines industry, we have failed our patients. We failed our patients by actually just dosing cells that have long since expired and placating what would be just symptomology. And what our industry is looking to do, what we're all here and excited by, is the opportunity to actually change that, to change by giving back patients the needed tissues, the needed organs that they require in order to overcome their disease. And in fact, at Bluerock, our mission is just that. We look to build authentic cellular medicines to both replace and reverse devastating diseases. And we do that, and I want to share with you sort of our 3 core capabilities, if you will, the same capabilities you're going to hear from many of the companies today, but what sets Bluerock apart. What sets us apart is, as you've heard from several of the companies in these earlier presentations, we are an iPSC cell-based therapeutics company. iPSC-based therapeutics, as you've understood, is the taking of adult healthy donor cells, reprogramming those cells, and then being capable by the Nobel Prize winning work to change that cell into any cell type needed in the body. Of course, what's required then is a deep study and understanding of the characteristics and the definition of that cell, and many of that for us comes from decades of learnings from academic cell labs. But then the very difficult part is taking that art and creating it into an industrial science, a manufacturing industrial science. And to that end, we have the capability not only to create any cell type within the human body, but then modify any gene in the genome of that cell. These 2 technologies allow us to then apply to both 2 different kinds of modalities that we think about in the building of our pipeline. The first of that is what we call an authentic cellular medicine. That is, if you will, the wild type cell, the cell that would be required for a disease such as Parkinson's disease. When at the diagnosis, patients are believed to have up to 80% loss of the very cell type required to release dopamine to the brain in required movement or motion. And that would be authentic cellular medicines. The other modality we use is what we call our gene modified or cell plus gene platform. This allows us to add therapeutic payloads, or as we have heard others speak of, that universal cell type, that tolerized or allogeneic cell that will be acceptable without immunosuppression in a given patient, and really widen and open up the patient population that we can dose. And so I made mention of sort of our flexible nature from the very get-go. Bluerock was assisted by a collaboration with Editas Medicine that gave us the license and the ability to gene modify our cellular products. This collaboration allowed for an exchange of technologies such that Bluerock can build into its technology space in given indication areas. The other applications of collaborations you'll hear in this last year through the work of the Bayer, and Bluerock is a wholly owned subsidiary of Bayer Pharmaceutical. In fact, our unique model with Bayer Pharmaceuticals, and where we operate as an independent but wholly owned subsidiary, gives us the flexibility to both work through the LEAPS ventures, such as we have with Senti Biosciences, that builds really exquisite classical gene circuits that allow us to both control gene expression on an as-needed basis. And those LEAPS venture-backed companies are able to then collaborate with the Bayer subsidiaries. We look to do more of these, and in fact, I'll tell you about one other of these collaborations in the coming slides. But before I do, core to any iPSC or any cell therapy, as we all will say, the process is the product, is the ability to manufacture our cells at scale, and to do this both with consistency and with quality. Bluerock, along with our parent company Bayer, has really invested over the last 5+ years in building our capabilities, both our know-how, our technology around this know-how, and the sites that we're doing this in. We're now covering more than 3 sites in manufacturing. Our first pilot cGMP cell therapy sites, in collaboration with CCRM, who's here at the meeting as well, and our own GMP facilities will make those phase 1 and those pilot GLP studies. We have an up-and-coming new facility in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where we have another one of our research sites that is building the required reagents for gene editing at the GMP scale, and that site is meant to come online at the end of this year. And then finally, because of the investment of our parent company, we've already broken ground on a commercial facility for the production of our cellular products in Berkeley, California, and that site is meant to come online in the coming years. So it's not just enough to have, of course, exquisite technologies and a really pretty new site to make these cells, but one has to be very focused on the analytics and the know-how of the field. Analytics and quality assurity has become, as you've heard several speakers talk about, regulatory delays or inability to come to the marketplace have become incredibly important, and we at Bluerock have paid attention to this from our get-go and are continuing to do so. And I give you just a few examples of some of the unique analytics that we put our cells through. As we differentiate and characterize these cells, we put them through even single-cell RNA-seq for information that then gives us our qualified assays for release in a manufacturing sense. And of course, most importantly then, is going to scale of that manufacturing. It's no simple effort to go from an academic's single flask into bioreactors and then into the marketplace. And lastly, of course, all of these capabilities and all of these efforts are to build a pipeline of products. And the way that we've gone about which indication spaces and which diseases we're interested in happened as early as the formation of Bluerock Therapeutics. We were founded by 4 well-known and well-respected academics within the field that have spent decades characterizing both the disease but also the cell type required for the replacement or the restoration of function in that disease. And I'll take you through just a few examples of how this plays out in our product pipeline. So the first of these is Lorenz Studer. Lorenz at the Memorial Sloan Kettering has spent the last decades differentiating and characterizing several different neurology cell types. The first of which that we've worked in collaboration with them to place into the clinic is a dopaminergic neuron. And so our DAO1, we term our dopaminergic neuron DAO1. As you may know, the consequence of Parkinson's disease is leading to the loss of those cells and the loss of dopamine production within the patient's midbrain. And we are seeking to replace those cells and integrate them into the neural network. This is just an amazing feat when you start to think about what it means to bring therapy to a patient. This trial is ongoing and going extremely well. What I can inform you is what we've announced publicly this year, which is that we've closed our low-dose cohort back in January of this year, and we're moving on through our high-dose cohort. It's a multi-site, both from a collection standpoint, but also from 2 sites from a neurosurgery standpoint, both in Canada and in the US. And finally, I wanted to end with and talk to you about the unique capabilities of Bluerock as an independent but wholly owned subsidiary to have a flexible working nature. And I want to tell you the story about Opsis Therapeutics, which is a company that's been formed and founded around bringing benefit to patients in both inherited retinal diseases as well as in dry and wet AMD. And Bluerock announced, along with Opsis and Fujifilm, a collaboration and an option to license 3 different programs in that space, which allows for 2 different cell types as well as a combination product with those cell types. This gives you some sense of the vast array of cells that we're working at Bluerock, from dopaminergic cells to cardiac myocytes, immunology cells, and now finally in collaboration with Opsis and Fujifilm, who will carry the vast weight on manufacturing these cell types in through the clinic and the marketplace, and using Bluerock's iPSC technology and know-how as well as regulatory and clinical interactions to bring these products forward. And so the first of those is an RPR, a cell where you can make both rods and cones, the essential cells for bringing in light and dark and color into the cells of patients that are suffering from inherited retinal diseases. This is a space that's known well to our field in general from gene therapy, but if you think about it from a cell therapy standpoint, instead of a single product for a single inherited retinal disease, we're seeking to go after a large portion of the inherited retinal diseases that are appropriate for the replacement of a wild-type cell that then brings benefit. And the pictures that are shown here are really preclinical pictures that demonstrate both the ability to make these cells and to differentiate them, but also 9 months engraftment of the correct geography as well as integration by markers within the animal models that we're in pursuit of. So with that, I really want to leave you and leave you with the impression that both Bluerock is investing in and making progress in its pipeline from both a clinical standpoint as well as from a manufacturing standpoint, that we, along with the other satellite companies that Bayer has brought, have a very unique model, and we bring a very unique approach to the biotechnology ecosystem, in which we're a wholly owned subsidiary, but we operate independently, and we've been given great leverage to partner to bring our products forward, or products that we deem have great chances of success within the industry. And in fact, this year we'll be looking to do some of those partnerships even with large pharmaceutical companies in pursuit of those of the best application and the largest patient population for our products. And with that, thank you very much for your three-dimensional attention.